Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Pursuit Podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Engineer, and on today's episode, we have Sam Davis. Sam is an avid bow hunter, dedicated husband and father with a ton of experience hunting and guiding in Wyoming and Montana. We discuss how he got started in hunting, raising his daughter in the outdoors, tactics for spot and stalk hunts, as well as how his work ethic led to him starting his own brand, Predators Never Quit. Please welcome Sam Davis. All right, everyone, we are live with our guy Sam Davis from Sheridan, Wyoming. How are we doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks a lot for having me on.
No, thanks for taking the time. I know you're a busy man, and we'll get into the family life and all that stuff here in a little bit. But I know it's hard to kind of carve time out with work and family, so I appreciate you coming on. For those of you who don't know, I actually came across Sam in a Bo Martonic podcast. I believe it was about 7 or 8 months ago, June, I think, last year. And you quickly became one of my favorite people in the industry, if you will. And I use industry with air quotes because I don't think you really kind of fit that mold so much, but personally. But, I've heard this said before, man, but I think it's 100% true. I think you're one of probably the best Western hunters out there that just hasn't had, I think, the notoriety, if you will, that I think you deserve, man. So, again, I appreciate you coming on. I'm really excited to talk to you.
Well, thanks a lot for that. I aspire to, there's guys that live out here out west I really look up to. So I don't see myself as everything that I want to be, but I truly love bow hunting, and bow hunting's been good to me, and I'm lucky that I've just been doing it since I was 14, 15 years old. So I'm 37 now. So I've got a lot of seasons under my belt for as young as I am. So
definitely.
Thanks for the kind words, man.
Oh, you're welcome. You kind of set it up for us there. Let's go ahead and get into your background. I kind of heard the story, obviously, from some of your other podcasts, but let's get into your background and kind of what got you started into hunting, and kind of just, generally about yourself.
All right. So to start off, I'm married. I got a wife named Peyton. She bow hunts too. We have a little girl named Lainey. She's 4 years old, and she's the light of our life, man. That's everything. Everything's family first with me, and then it's bow hunting. As far as my startup, my dad was a guide. I grew up in the hunting kind of world my whole life. I mean, I didn't know any different. From 2.5 years old, there's pictures of me crawling through sagebrush, putting stalks on antelope with my dad, as we had clients from Georgia, Michigan, I mean, everywhere. So that's how that started. I mean, and it never stopped. From there, I went on to getting older. I killed a few animals with a rifle when I turned 12 years old. I had the bow, a little bear bow like everybody that gets into hunting kind of did as a kid. Shot it with fingers, rabbits, and every hay bale and bush. And then I really got interested into archery probably when I was like 15 years old. That summer, I started shooting my dad's. He had a big old bow. Anyways, I grabbed it out of a closet and started flinging arrows with it. And after it whacked my arm about 60 times, and I had welts because it was probably 30-inch draw.
Sure.
I got my dad talked into, let's go down to the archery shop, and I got a PSE Nova $200 bow back in the day, fully set up. It's like $215. I mean, you don't hear that anymore at all.
Wish they were still $250.
Oh man, right? Yeah. And that's where it started. I shot and shot and shot. I mean, football season, I was big. I played sports, so football season coincided with archery season. But I was able to, that summer I was 15, my mom dropped me off on the mountain. I had an older cousin that was up there camping, and mom kicked me out and said, I'll be back in 3 days. And 2.5 days later, I had my first mule deer, high country mule deer, about 9,000 feet, 10,000 down to 9,500 feet. I had him dead in the sagebrush, and it was surreal. Like, I will never forget that day. I stuck him, I hit him in the center of the body, a liver shot him at 45 yards. It's one of those things, like I say all that because it's something I'll never forget. I can remember the yards. He was facing left, everything about it, and he walked up, when he hit a liver shot, they kind of hump up and might not run off. He didn't know. He was surprised. He didn't know I was there. There was like 6 other bucks there. And he walked up about 15 yards and bedded down, and I just sat there for 45 minutes till he finally laid his head down. An hour, his head went all the way down. I snuck up there, and I had my first mule deer at 15. So
that's awesome. It's probably one of those things you probably just you could recall like what the weather was like and what the day. I love those memories.
Yeah, and that's where it all started as far as like bow hunting, big game, and I've never looked back. It grabbed a hold of me, and I love it. I mean, everything about hunting, I love bow hunting. I'll chase anything with it, and I have since then. I mean, that's all I pretty much have used as a bow. So, yeah, that's me in a snapshot.
That's awesome. I know you work on a ranch, and we kind of can get into this a little bit too, probably later on when we talk about some of the tactics. But how do you balance your time with the ranch and then being in the field? And does that kind of make you? Do you think? I mean, I would imagine so. Just a better hunter in general by just being out in the field that much.
Yeah. I think I'm very fortunate to where I'm set up. I've worked for this family. It's a family-owned operation. I don't own it or manage it. I've worked for this family for this is my 20th year I've worked for them. And yeah, I'm in mule deer. I'm in elk every single day, no matter what I'm doing out there. It's big ranching country up here in Wyoming, and it's big ranches and big country. And I got permission from all the neighbors where I can shed hunt. I don't get to hunt any of those places because they're all leased out by outfitters. But as far as just like dinking around and scouting and learning deer habits and shed hunting, I mean, I've been immersed in. I work. It's not like I just get free shed hunting, right? Like I help those ranches calve and I help them brand, and I'm always fencing. I've literally had ranchers tell me for every shed you find, you got to check a mile fence for me. And I mean, when I was in high school, I was all over that. I would fence and shed hunt, and so yeah. As far as every day being out there, I'm literally looking at mule deer every single day. I'm looking at elk every single day. I put stalks on stuff when it's bedded in a spot, and I'm checking fence, moving cows, whatever. I'll definitely. I'm not gonna lie to you. I've got out and I put stalks on stuff, dropped rocks on top of them, taking pictures, tried touching them. I mean, I'm always messing with mule deer for sure. Look at a lot of them. Look at a lot of elk, and yeah, that has definitely shortened the learning curve for me. I mean, I've been doing it since I was 18, working at the ranch, and not only did I guide and stuff with my dad and guide, I'm also a guide too. That's what I've been doing since I've been 18. I've been a licensed guide in Montana and Wyoming. So yeah, it's I've been totally immersed in it, and being on the ranch, definitely, I'm in it every single day. I see their habits, what they do in the winter. I see their habits, what they do in the summer, fall, everything. So I'm very fortunate in that aspect of things. I see a lot of what mule deer do and elk do, so it's pretty neat.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, clearly that helps you with what you got going on there. One thing I did want to mention before we get too far, we can brag about Peyton for a little bit. So you mentioned that she's a bow hunter, but you did mention that she's an absolute killer. I was just showing Ben. Ben hadn't watched the videos yet, and so I was like, hey, man, you got to check these old. I went back to the YouTube and checked out some of the older videos from, like, I think she stoned that mule deer. What was that? She was so excited. I just watched it. It was like 38 yards or something like that. And then of course that elk, with you two and the elk. Go ahead and take a little bit of time and earn your brownie points, and let's brag about your wife a little bit, because she's she's an absolute killer.
Yeah, man. She's so we got together. It's been 7 going on 8 years ago now, and she would always see me. She would come out to the ranch and she'd come visit me, and I'd always had my bow, always shooting a couple arrows every day at least. I'm just one of those guys that, not to Cameron Haynes it, and I mean, I really look up to that guy, but he drove that into my head a long time ago. I mean, I've read his articles, and I literally shoot every day. And she'd always watch me shoot. Now it was just like, I would just like, it would just like calm me down, or I don't know. It's just like even just out the door real fast if we were going to town. I mean, I'd shoot 3 arrows, get in the truck. I mean, like leave the arrow stuck in the target. And she's always like, it's just something that just relaxes you, huh? And she was always fascinated with it. Then that whole first year we kind of dated. So that year for Christmas, I got her a bow, and we ended up getting engaged that next spring. So going into that next hunt season, we put in for tags, drew some really easy to draw tags, she didn't put in because it didn't work out to where she didn't put in that year because we weren't, I don't know, I guess we weren't that serious, but she wasn't that serious into bow hunting, thinking she was going to hunt an elk. So long story short, she had an over-the-counter tag. We went out that first year, and we hunted hard for 2 days, got rained on real hard, and third day out, I cut tracks in the mud, and I'm like, that's a lone bull, like a big single track. And I was like, let's get on it. We literally started tracking, came up over a big ridge, glassed this bull way out there, looped around to get the wind right, and called him in, and she stuck. He's like I'm not a score guy, but he's a stud. He's a 330-inch 6x7 was her first. That was her first elk she smoked. And I was like, holy cow, like, way to start this off. And so then from there, it just progressed. I mean, she progressed. She killed a mule deer. She killed an antelope. And then the next year, she was pregnant with our little girl. and our daughter was born October 10th, and she hiked in public land over a couple miles, killed a bull on September 1st. So she had a baby 35 days later. I mean,
that's awesome.
40 days later. So yeah, she's a beast. She killed that bull. She killed another big bull after that. She's killed a really nice whitetail and a handful of more antelope, and she loves it. So yeah, I'm very fortunate. When guys got to take time away from family and jobs and all that, I'm pretty lucky because she does tell me. She says she likes being a mom more than she likes hunting. So
of course,
it's hard for her to go pound 8 or 10 days out there with me. But she'll do 2 or 3 nights, and then she's ready to get home to our daughter. But it's awesome. I'm a pretty lucky guy to be able to spend some time in the hills with my wife, and I'm not away from her, but we're still doing the thing we love.
Yeah,
exactly. She's a killer.
That's awesome, man. I mean, we couldn't have asked for a better situation, right? I mean,
except I gotta tell you guys, like when it comes to wives, you can imagine, when your hunting buddy's like slacking and you tell him he needs to hustle up or you need to get down.
Gotta be a little bit more careful.
Dude, I cuss a little bit, and I maybe have dropped an F-bomb in the heat of a stalk. I get across the effing creek, like right now, and she'll look at me, and it's like, I shouldn't have said that. Like, babe, I love you. Like, I meant it, but I, like, get across the creek. Like, now, let's go. So,
it's intense,
there's a
man.
little difference there when you're talking to your hunting buddies and you're talking to your wife. You might get some glares, and it might be kind of the awkward silence, or not the awkward silence, the pissed off silence there for a second. But anyways, yeah, it's. I'm pretty lucky. It's cool. It's really cool. And now our daughter's with us. I mean, last year I had my daughter on my shoulders. I took her up, and Peyton still had a tag, and I packed her all over chasing elk last year. So, yeah, it's fun, man.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
And I'm glad you said your daughter because, like I told you before we started recording, my daughter is, I think, roughly around the same age. She's 5, so she's probably a little bit older.
Yeah.
But I totally get it, and I see that passion for you. I see the pictures on Instagram. I mean, I think one of the favorite ones I saw was she was touching the pronghorn on the head.
Oh yeah,
It was like halfway down or whatever, and I was just like, dude, like this guy gets it. And I think, like I told you too, like that's kind of really what drew me to you was your love for her. So let's we bragged for the wife a little bit. Let's talk about your number one and then your daughter and kind of all the love for her.
So yeah, it's one of those things. Like, I guess I wanted. Everybody's like, "Oh, you wanted a little boy and you got a little girl." I was like, "No, I wanted." You could ask Peyton. I wanted because I'm dark haired, brown eyes. I was like, I want this like little olive skinned, blonde haired, blue eyed little girl. Like, if we could do that, and no kidding, that's what we got.
Yeah, exactly.
She's got curly hair. She's really tall for her age, and she is full fire. Like, I say tall because she can cruise with me. She's athletic. I mean, she moves, and so we do stuff. And I've been hauling around since she's been 3, just her and I, shed hunting and stuff. I mean, I take her on big trips. I just throw her up on my shoulders, on my pack, and I climb the hills, and I make her walk the flats or walk downhill. And then I climb the hills with her on my back, and that's our jig, how we go through the hills. But no, man, we've had her when she was a baby. She was on a couple easy antelope hunts with Peyton, and we had her with us there. This year, she actually went whitetail hunting with me. And I had a blind. I'm not a big whitetail guy, but in Wyoming, we get an extra whitetail tag, right?
What did you call them? What did you call them with bows? What was your nickname?
Swamp rats.
Swamp rats. Man, you hurt. We're Central Ohio guys. You're hurting my heart.
Yeah, we don't got the big. I mean, we do have big whitetail. We don't got 250-pound, 3 or 280-inch deer walking around all over like you guys do. But anyways, I had her in the blind with me. Middle of the rut, and I'd rattled this buck in, and it was just one of those awesome rut activity days. It was a little warm, but just there was deer moving everywhere, and she actually was in the blind with me, and I stuck a really cool whitetail buck that she has an extra main beam and some neat stuff. But to have her in the blind with me, to see that arrow hit that deer and make her be quiet, and the deer runs off, tucks tail, single lung livered him, he's slightly quartering, runs off, tucks tail, kind of like, don't sound like that good of a shot, kind of like my first deer I explained where they did the run off and lay down, and you just got to kind of watch him. And it was cool. I let him go overnight, and man, the excitement calling her mom and telling her dad shot one, oh man, that was so awesome.
That's fantastic,
and then
man.
Took the whole family out there. We were daylight the next morning, right there, and he bedded down right where I saw him go down is right where he was laying. So it was like a perfect scenario. We didn't have to blood trail, but she's been bear hunting with me. I mean, I've taken a 3-year-old checking bear baits. I've taken a 3-year-old up glassing for bears up in big gnarly canyons. Payne's like, "What are you gonna do if you see one?" I'm like, "I don't know. I'll figure that out when we get there." But
No doubt.
But that time of year, the elk are calving, and there's elk calves everywhere, and the cow elk are up in the trees, and we sneak up on elk, and like, you have these aspirations, I guess, or I don't know if that's the right word, but of like, oh, I want him to do this, I want him to do that, and you really can't push things. But I think she just sees Peyton and I shoot our bows, we work out, messing with our horses all the time, and she just wants to do it. Like, there's no, I put a bow in front of her, and like, I got the back door open to the house, and you can hear it out there. You can hear it just shooting arrows. Then you hear her riding her bike and playing with the ball or whatever, and all of a sudden you'll hear quietness, and you'll hear it's out there, she's shooting her bow, and it's like, I don't have to tell her, like, just give her arrows and give her a bow, and she's out there slamming that thing. Or she's got a stuffed animal bear that's in our living room, and she shoots arrows at it constantly. Not her big bow, but her toy bow. She's always killing it and blood trailing it, and it's kind of neat. I mean, I don't know. It's exactly what I dreamt of to have, but if there's guys out there that got little ones coming up, like, you damn sure don't have to push it. Just be you in front of them. If they can see that it's your passion and you love it, put down your phone, be a parent, be a dad. Grab that phone when they go to bed. Like, that's my rule. I don't really try to grab my phone until she's in bed, and be a dad, because it's only going to last us. We only got a few years, and then they're gone, man. She's going to be 13, have boys chasing her, and sports, and her girlfriends, and dad's not going to be that cool. So
no doubt.
I'm really trying to soak it in right now.
I'm so glad you said that, though, because my next question that I kind of follow up to that would be like that advice you give. And I kind of echo that too. You know, like I said, with my daughter, I think she was like 3, and of course I don't have nearly the type of game that you have. I mean, a 1.5 mile hike for her to look for sheds is probably about as far as I can get. But you know, we take the stuffed animals with the little suction cup pink bow that you get at Walmart, you know, and put the face paint on and headlamps and pretend that we're hunting in the house, and you know, it's just. But you know, you hit it right on the head there. Like, my kids, you know, we talked to the guys from Tethered. We have a good relationship with them, and you know, I hang in a tree in the front yard to practice during the summer on a saddle.
Okay.
Which I don't know if I have to explain a saddle to you, being a Western guy, but
no, I know what you're talking about. I've looked into them. Yeah.
So I'm hanging in the front tree to shoot, and my son, who's 2.5, he had a Mardi Gras bead standing on the couch pretending that he was hanging in his saddle like my tether, and I'm like, you know, with no pressure, no pushing. It's just they want to do what you're into, and if you can show them that passion, they're ultimately going to just be naturally gravitate towards it. And so it's awesome, man. I wouldn't ask for anything better. Like you said, you know, people are like, do you want a girl, do you want a boy? It's like, you know, I want a healthy kid that is able to do the things that they want to do, and you know, there's nothing better, man. There's nothing better.
Yeah. My thing is, let's show her everything. If she wants to dance, if she wants to play sports, if she wants to do gymnastics, if she wants to shoot a bow, I will show her everything, and whatever she gravitates towards, let's do it.
And she was she was crushing some boys at the archery range not too long ago, if I remember right?
Oh,
they had a story post about that or something. Cracked me up.
Yeah, Peyton was, some guy was, and there was a young kid, like an 8 or 9 year old, and they're telling her how good he could shoot and how good rifles are, and right as Peyton was videoing, it just happened to work out. She slammed this bighorn sheep target right in the 12 ring, and she looks back, and it's just one of those priceless moments you catch on camera, right? But she we shoot a lot in the wintertime here in January when it's pretty cold. We get done feeding cows, and then we go shoot our bows inside. She likes that.
What kind of bow do you have for her, with her being younger? Do you know?
Grandpa bought it for her, and he bought it for her on her first birthday. He was really amped up about it. It's one of those little bears. I don't know. It's a little bear.
Yeah.
Green bear. I'm really looking at the PSE has a sweet little kid's bow that goes from like 16 inches. They all kind of do, but there's one I've been looking at the PSE has that I really like. I just haven't ordered it yet for her, but that's going to be our next step, because I want to get her in a whisker biscuit. And get to where she can get that arrow controlled. I think a whisker biscuit, I mean, if I'd had one of those when I was a little kid, I had the old bow doodle, and that arrow was always flinging off the bow. The wind could blow it off a bow doodle, but
Yep. You know, the Genesis bows, I think, too, are really cool. I know you like to shoot PSEs, but I'm a Matthews guy here with the whitetail stuff, and you know, drink the Kool-Aid.
I'm teasing.
Everyone does. Ben's a Hoyt guy across the table here, so he always jokes with me too.
Gotcha.
But those little mini, I think they're like the mini Genesis. They're the same bows that they use for the NAS programs. And I think that's what is really interesting to me, especially, I mean, working in the industry, we have connections with all that stuff, so it makes it really nice. But,
But
something like that for the kids for sure.
Yeah, this little bear, I put a little stick-on rest on it, and I think it's cool. I cut down some of my arrows I killed stuff with, and I left the blood on them.
Oh yeah.
So like just another one of them, I killed a moose a few years ago, and I've had it sitting in my archery room, and I guess still got blood on it. Well, I cut it down short enough for her. That's her favorite arrow because that's when I killed the moose with. She tells me every time she pulls it out of her quiver, and I'm like, that's pretty cool. So she's got my elk one from this year, still got some blood on it, and I cut it down so it's long enough because they were broken. So I just cut them down short enough for her, and yeah, man, it's a blast. That's all there is to it. It's a lot of fun with her.
Does she get to the point? If you go back, you listen to some of the other podcasts, but I don't know if I actually said it on air. I know Ben's heard it. This year wasn't my best year in terms of like connecting on some whitetails, and my son always tells me I missed a buck during the rut, right over his back, and he goes, "Dad, you missed buck? You missed buck?" Did she ever do that to you?
Oh yes, there was I whiffed in on a mule deer in Arizona last year, and it ate me up. Like, it was a perfect shot, perfect stock. I mean, just over-the-counter mule deer like everybody talks about. And he was a hammer, guys. Like, for an over-the-counter deer, he was mid-170s, maybe 180 deer. He was a stud. And I'm not big on numbers, like I said, but just to give you a reference, he was a really, really good deer. And I sat on him for over 3 hours, and then I whiffed the shot, clipped him right over top his neck, and I got home, and Peyton had heard this story, my sob story, on my 14-hour drive home, and she'd heard the sob story. And Lainey, they all give me hugs and kisses, and the next day, she stands up, she goes, "Well, Dad, if you wouldn't have missed, you'd have a deer." And I was like, "I love you. I love you so much, honey."
No doubt.
Like, but yes, I've heard that kind of stuff. Her archery shoots, I've missed. We take her all the 3D shoots, and
sure,
she'll let me know when I screw up. That's for sure.
That's awesome. And you kind of segued it for me a little bit too, but obviously, we'll peel off the family. But you've had a ton of experience, hunting all sorts of species. I mean, Wyoming's rich with different types of hunts that you're able to apply for. Is there one particular hunt for you? I mean, you kind of touched on that first mule deer, but is there a particular hunt for you? I know you killed a giant moose. Is there anything in there that stands out as your favorite?
For as far as my favorite hunt I think I've ever been on was my wife in 2018. That bull that's on YouTube, he's screaming and she smokes. It was a stud on opening day. I mean,
she hammered
that's
him.
probably one of the most. Oh yeah, that's probably one of the most all-time favorite hunts. But personally, I killed a bighorn sheep in 2017. I drew a bighorn sheep tag in Wyoming, and in Wyoming, it's not like an archery only, or it's just a sheep tag. Archery season opened August 1st. Rifle season opened August 15th. You could use any weapon, just had to be in the season. And I went up, my best friend hunting partner Zach, and a guy that I look up to, like a brother named Ryan out of Jackson, and we rolled up in the mountains, and that was an unreal hunt. That was a hunt where the game warden over there, my buddy is a biologist over there. Anyways, long story short, he's like, "Good luck. Your buddy's using a bow. Good luck." Like that was, and I heard that, and I was just like, "Man,
challenge accepted."
Yeah, I mean, and I didn't look at it like that, but it's just like, man, it's gonna be tough, like. And we rolled up in there, and that herd of sheep in Wyoming is kind of a historic herd. And right now, there's a lot of turmoil with that herd of sheep, actually, because there's mountain goats that have came into that territory, into their area, and they're calling the mountain goat actually an invasive species, and they're threatening the bighorn sheep. So, anyways, long story short, there's not a lot of bighorn sheep in that unit. A bunch of them live in Grand Teton National Park and out of Grand Teton National Park. Well, obviously, I couldn't hunt in the park, so it was challenging. But rolled up in there, and I was able to get a ram killed on August 2nd, second day of the season. I arrowed a really nice ram at almost 11,000 feet, and my buddies Ryan and Zach were about a mile away across the canyon, and yeah, it was it stuck him. It was just everything kind of lined up. It was a good shot, an amazing stock, put a really good arrow in him, watched him jump off a cliff, and I knew right away he was done. And I backed off. I didn't even go walk over the edge. The other 4 rams stood there. I backed off, got those guys' attention. They came over, and it took them 45 minutes to get over to me because they were all the way across the canyon. And that was to sit down on that rock and use 17 years worth of preference points. The no one had. So then come to find out, I kill a ram, get him out, you check him in, and my buddy is a biologist over there. He calls me. He's like, "Hey man," he goes, "That's the first archery killed ram ever in that unit, ever recorded in that unit. It was the first archery killed ram, and it was the oldest ram to ever come in that unit, 9.5 years old." So it was that hunt right there, I look and it's just like it was like I did something. Like, not that I'm going for a record, or he's not big. I mean, he's not easy in a record book, but it's just like it's kind of neat to be like, you know, to have my name as one of the first archers killed something in the state in a unit. And as much as I love bow hunting, as passionate as I am about Wyoming, for me that was pretty surreal to think, to have all that come together like that. First shot, first stalk, first everything, and it was cool. And to kill a 9.5-year-old, a super mature ram, and have him come off the mountain with me, and it was awesome. So that hunt really stands out to me. That was a big one.
Oh, for sure. And I'm looking at the picture here on Instagram, and it's like he's a stud, and the country's beautiful. I mean, you couldn't have asked for a better background, right? I mean, come on,
right?
Bro. That's great stuff.
I know, that was unreal country, and yeah, that was a hell of an experience. That was a fun one. And then this year, I killed an elk this year that it tested a lot of my mental game. I was by myself in a nasty hole, and I set my goal pretty high to kill a big bull, not just a 6-point, and that all came together this year, and that was a wild ride too. But the sheep, I would say, is probably the pinnacle of my bow hunting career so far. When I look back, thinking of my most proud moment or most excited, when it all came together, that would be the sheep.
All right, everyone. We hope you're enjoying the conversation with Sam so far. I know it's got Ben and I super excited to get out to Wyoming this fall. But switching gears back to Ohio, the turkey season starts this weekend. I can't believe it's already here. It seems like just yesterday we were covered in snow. And well, with our Ohio weather, we very well could have been. Be sure to stop into any one of our locations to check out our current turkey sale deals that we have going on. Whether you're looking for new clothing, calls, decoys, or blinds, you know we got you covered. You can also shop our selection of turkey gear at vanceoutdoors.com. Again, that's Vance, VANCE, outdoors.com. Now let's jump back into this conversation. Let's go ahead and dive into your tactics, if you will. So obviously, you know, here in Central Ohio, we're worried about our scent. We're hunting scrape lines, you know, we're hunting patterns and what have you, and tree stands. But obviously, with you hunting a lot of different terrain, I think I've heard you, I mean, you're basically hunting the entire state. What's some of the main differences between hunting in the mountains versus, you know, hunting in the Badlands towards like Gillette and that area over there? And then,
What?
Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, and the other thing, I know, this is something that I really took away from hearing you talk before, but you know, spotting and using those lateral lines, that kind of tip that you have with the lateral lines. If you kind of want to just touch in on that, those tactics altogether.
Yeah. So first question, the biggest difference between the mountains and any other country is water. Water's the thing that it's crucial, obviously. Mountains, though, I've never hunted like Nevada. You hear Brian Barney, you hear those guys that go down that country, Nevada. I've never dealt with mountains that are lack of water that much, where they're traveling a lot of miles. I definitely been in the mountains where you're dropping 1,500, I can't say 800 to 1,500 vertical feet to get to water, because you're wanting to camp up high and glass up high, and it's a real pain in the butt to have to drop down and get water. I carry little hydro bladders, extra bladders that I carry, and I carry like 3 of those at 3 liters a piece, and I make sure when I hit water before I get to a lot of those summits, I'll fill up all of those. So the pack gets real heavy, but I try to make it so at least I got a couple days worth of water, so I'm not dropping back and forth every day. Now you get out to the desert country, Badlands kind of stuff, that's a game changer. Water is the thing out there, not necessarily to hunt on. And those deer are crazy. They can go a long ways. They'll drink. They get a lot of moisture out of their forage, and deer can go days without drinking. The thing is, if you're hunting elk on the dry country, if you find water, it's gold.
Yeah.
But the water out there, I mean, I've done things as far as I take water in summertime, pack it in if I know I'm going to be back in there. I take it in on my scouting trips. Yeah, and that's the ticket. Hopefully you can find a stock tank, you know, that beef cattle are drinking out of, and you can filter out of that. But you're always playing a dicey game between private and public, so you really got to be watching it on X, and you got to be checking all that too, because a lot of the times those stock tanks are on the private land side, so you can't access them. The animals can drink them, and it might be 100 yards over there, but you can't touch it. So
exactly,
that's the biggest difference. That is truly the biggest difference. And as far as the game, mule deer are mule deer. They like a high vantage point. They like being able to see. They might tuck into some brush, but they still like being able to see. They're really dependent on their eyes and those big old ears. So I'm always looking for, like, you look at the high country, you look at, southern Wyoming, or you look at Wyoming and Colorado, you got 13,000 foot peaks in Colorado, you got 11,000 foot peaks in Wyoming. Those mule deer like those big open spots where they can bed, maybe on a maybe slightly timbered finger. There is deer that will walk right down in the middle of the timber. You're kind of SOL as far as putting stock on them. You're going to be hunting them in the evening as they come out of the feeding features. But the thing, and then the mule deer out in the open country, or in the breaky country, they're the same exact thing. Find the high ridges that run north-south, where deer maybe can just walk from the east side to the west side, get his shade a little different from morning bed to afternoon bed as the sun goes over them. But they like a high ridge. They like being on a vantage point, just like high country deer. They're going to set themselves up with a good escape route so they can get out of there. So there's still mule deer as far as that goes. The winds in the mountains are a little more finicky than the winds in the Badlands country. It seems like you can get a more, kind of like, I'm assuming like Ohio, you kind of have a consistent wind. Like, you guys can hunt a stand on kind of a consistent directional, right?
Yeah.
And I would say that the Badlands are more like that. Like, they're more, unless there's a storm coming in, you can always kind of count on a consistent directional. I mean, you still got your thermals because there's big ridges and coulees and stuff like that. But where the mountains, man, the mountains are wicked. It takes one cloud, and when that sun gets covered, and that happens everywhere though, once that sun gets covered up, even if it's just one big thundercloud, you better be ready for that air to start dropping. I mean, you might be sitting on top because you've had an up thermal, and you see those clouds coming.
Boom.
And that deer hasn't stood up yet. Like, you're in a pickle there, because there's a good chance that wind might not drop right on top of them, but it's going to swirl. Like, you get that cloud covers that sun for just a few seconds, and it'll swirl that wind. So that's always stuff you got to be looking at. I don't know if that really answered your question as far as.
For sure, yeah.
But that was kind of the differences of the mountains, but the similarities also in the mule deer. They're at least just mule deer. You just got to just treat them a little bit different on as far as tactics on. They're bigger, obviously. Yeah. The mountains are bigger. The canyons of glassing are bigger, but the coulee country is harder to see, so you're covering so much more country trying to see every nook and cranny of that. That's the difference. I mean, you're working just as hard, I feel. What was the second?
Well, I was like kind of going into that. So, you're spotting, and this is kind of a really cool tip that I took away from you and on the other conversation, but the lateral lines, and when you're spotting, because here we're lucky to see, a couple hundred yards.
Okay, so think about this. Like, you got a, you're gonna be like, holy cow, he doesn't know. So say you got a soybean field out there in Ohio, right? You got a soybean field, and it's kind of like a rolling hill, but it's like last light or dusk, or it's daylight and it's just starting to break daylight. When you look out in that soybean field, even if you're summer scouting, like, you can see the roll of the hill. So there's your lateral line there. You guys got vertical trees, and you guys got a lateral line of that field, the edge of that field. Think about when a deer's standing out there. You see their back line, right?
Sure,
You're like, oh, there's a deer, because you see that lateral. That's exactly, I guess, the way I can explain it, to like put it in your terms, is you look out across that field and you're scanning that field. You're not necessarily looking at the skyline because you can't see the skyline, but you're looking at the field edge. You're using the trees as kind of the skyline, and you're looking at that field, and you're quick. Your first scan is you're just zipping across that field with your binoculars, and you're like, oh, there's a back of something. There's that lateral line. The backdrop was the trees, which in my case, first thing I usually look at is, like, you look at all the easy stuff. Like, that's what you'd have looked at first, right? You'd have pulled up your binos, covered that field, been like, okay, there's something. Then you start going, oh, there's a trail that I know deer usually come out of. There's a trail they usually. Now you're looking into that timber. I don't know if you guys ever glass into the timber, but there, now can I see those antlers? Can I catch antler tips? So we're doing the same thing. It's just in a broader picture, right? So you're looking at a huge ridge. Most of the time you're set up, try to get the sun at your back. It doesn't always work out that way. So you got a nice glowing hill at first daylight, right? Mm-hmm. Those deer are going to be working that big, like, south-facing slope, east-facing slope. And you're looking for movement first. Skyline, those are going to catch your eye the fastest, I think. I don't know. I think of that because you always see antlers bob, and you see something moving on the skyline, and then start working into, like, your feeding features and slide down into, like, your big openings. What are they going to be eating on? Are they close to water? And then all of a sudden you're getting close to, okay, I've went over all that. Now have they already been out all night grazing and they're getting close to their bedding areas? Well, some of those deer, if we're talking mule deer specifically, some of those mule deer, in all of this country, they'll have like a morning bed that's not like the traditional morning bed that you hear about where they bed till 11 o'clock. Between 11 and 1, they're going to get up when the sun gets on their back. They're going to move to their afternoon bed. They'll have a bed. They might be bedded when you glass them at daylight. It doesn't even have to be full moon. Like they can just be out glassing or bedded in the middle. So those are the ones that you'll have scanned a whole ridge. You went top, look at the skyline. You've ran all like the feeding features. Bam, bam, bam. And you've been looking for these lateral lines. And when I say lateral lines, it is literally just a left, like I explained to you guys in your soybean field. So, and all of a sudden you'll be scanning, you're like, that's something. Well, it's either a down log. I mean, there's not a lot of stuff that has a nice flat line that lays horizontal in nature, unless it's a dead tree and out in this country, might be like a little bench. I don't know how to explain it. Like a little cut. When water runs down a hill, it like can sometimes cut the edge of the hill out or cut the bottom of the hill out, and it'll make like a pocket. Well, in that pocket, those mule deer will, once the water spring runoff is gone, those mule deer will paw those out, and pretty soon it's a dirt bank. It's a little dirt cut, and those mule deer will tuck themselves right into that. So there's a lateral line. You're seeing that dirt line, which you know it's a flat spot, which means it's a bed. Now is it in the shade where they could bed down for the morning? There you go. So so you blast all those. Yeah, and then so say you've been doing all that and you haven't seen a deer, you have seen deer, and then all of a sudden by about 9 o'clock in the morning, oh, there's a deer stand. Where did he come from? Well, that was a buck. There's probably better right out in the sagebrush, right out in the open, but still hard to see because they blend in so damn well that you missed. But he was that deer that had already been up grazing all night or grazed in the morning, but you didn't see him, and he was bedded down. Now the sun has started to hit him. He was right out in the wide open the whole time. That happens a lot. Like they like I said, they really depend on their eyes and those big old ears, and they'll lay right out in the open. Unlike a whitetail that's always going to go seek some brush, you know.
Some cover, yeah.
Yeah, but that'd be the way. I mean, and it's the same thing in the mountains. When you start getting up in the mountains, you got more geographical features such as like rocks. They're going to be, and they'll have that out in the Badlands country. You'll have big flagstone and stuff, and those deer love flagstone and stuff like that. That's real broke up like that. And in the mountains, you got your big granite rocks. And I know you've probably seen Snyder's videos. I'm trying to think of like guys, and you'll see those pictures in South Cox. He loves hunting that open, rocky mountain terrain, willows, rocks, big knobs, stuff that's easy to stalk through because those deer love laying underneath the base of a rock. It creates shade. They feel safe because their back's against something. But that rock is a lateral line. Think of the base of a rock laying on the flat ground. Like, there's your line that I'm talking about. So I just start scanning for those lateral lines. Boom, there's a lateral line. Nope, no deer there. Go to the next rock. Look under that lateral line. Boom. I don't know if a lateral line is a good way to explain it, but that's the only way I can think of. Like,
no, I think it makes. I mean, it paints a picture.
What my eyes see. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, now you're saying that. I mean, I just watched Dudley, one of John Dudley's videos. I think he was doing a stalk on that. What was it? Yeah, it was a pronghorn. He was doing a stalk, and there, boom, right there it was in the shade, lateral line underneath their little rock face there in the sagebrush and grass area. Totally. It's like exactly where. Yeah, I mean, so you're painting it really well for me. I'm following you for sure.
Yeah, so that's when it comes to glassing tactics like that. And then, I mean, once you start picking them apart a hill, when you're really diving deep and you're like looking for an antler tip, then it's just picking it apart then. But that's my initial get to a spot, start glassing. That's how I cover country. Like, that's how I cover country with my eyes. That's my tactic right there.
Yeah. So with that said, I mean, obviously you've had a lot of stalks and blown a lot. Had success a lot, you know. Has your experience, I mean, as someone that's like pretty seasoned in this, you know, you've been doing it for a really long time, has your tactics in terms of how you stalk and the approach that you take to the stalk, has that changed as you've gained more experience? And if so, like, kind of how has that changed for you over the years?
Man, that's an interesting question, the way you put that. I would say that you know, you always hear when it comes to mule deer, you always hear like I've actually spot and stalked quite a few whitetail too in Kansas too. I hate sitting at tree stands, so I've used tactics on whitetail also when they bed in some hilly country. There's always the wait for them to bed, get the wind in their face, sneak up from behind, right, come over the top. I've done. I would say I tried that a ton. As a kid though, I didn't have the patience to wait for him to bed. That would probably be the biggest thing. When I was younger, I didn't have the patience. Like, I didn't wait for him to bed. It was like, there's deer, let's go. And yeah, so I blew millions of stalks trying to push it, you know, and the winds weren't quite right, and the winds hadn't settled. There was more deer than I thought there were when I got there. So I definitely am still that aggressive. I think I'm just a lot smarter when it comes to when to be aggressive, when to press, when to hit the brakes, you know. So I've adjusted. As far as adjustment, my stocks are still very similar. If I can come over the top on a stock, yeah, I'm going to. If I can catch them on their feet, yeah, I'm going to. I shot a mule deer in Montana this year, and I'd been on him 2 or 3 times. I'd never actually put a stock on him, but he was one of those dudes. He would actually go into the brush, and he would go too far into the brush where I couldn't get a stock on him. I watched him do that 2 or 3 times. And the last morning I saw him, I actually killed him. I saw him, and he was up feeding at 9 o'clock in the morning. It was already 80 degrees. I was like, this is odd. And he was, I don't know if he'd had a morning bed, you know, like I was telling you earlier, like if he had been bedded at daylight and I didn't see him, and then all of a sudden he got up and was grazing at 8:30 on his way to his morning bed. I don't know what I was seeing, but he was up. And I bombed in after him, very aggressive, wind coming from right to left, not hitting him in the face. I mean, it was one of those things where I had perpendicular wind. I like a perpendicular window. I will sneak in on the same level as them sometimes. It just might work out that way. I'm not scared if a deer's got his butt towards me, or wait for him to turn to where he's facing away, and knowing that I can maybe slide in behind on their elevation. I don't need to be above them all the time. I definitely have stalked a lot of deer on their elevation. Can't say I've stalked a lot from underneath, but no, as the years have went on, how I've progressed, I would say I've all I've done is, I can't say my stalking tactics have really changed, but my when to put the foot on the gas and when to be more patient, that has definitely changed. My timing of everything, I think that just comes down to blowing a lot of stalks, but also knowing deer habits a little more, knowing what I'm seeing as I'm stalking in on them, knowing to be more aware of other eyes around them, or what their antler tips are doing. Or I've came down to where I was talking to Brian Barney on the Eastman's Elevated podcast a while ago, and I was explaining to him, like, I've got to where, and that guy's a, you can't tell Brian anything, right? Because he knows it all. He's just a legend. I look up to that guy.
For sure.
But he, I was telling him, like, I've got to where this year I was watching deer, and I could tell you I was moving as he was up, and you just watch his jaw. And the minute his jaw would stop, he was listening. I was like, I knew he had heard me a little bit. And the minute he started chewing again, let him to put his head down and eat, then pop his head up. I let him do that 2 more times or whatever, to make sure that, okay, he'd relax. Whatever he thought he'd heard, he was back to chewing. But he picked his head up, and he'd stop chewing. You could tell he was just listening. And so, I mean, like, learning deer habits like that, I think, is subconsciously, I've taken that in. And when someone asks me questions like you are right now, it brings it out of me, like, that, to really think back to, I'm actually watching a deer chew and making sure he's more relaxed, even when because I like moving on them on their feet. I do like stalking on them up deer. Like, I can see them. I know what they're doing. Usually if they're up, their buddies, their buddies are up, and now I can kind of see all the eyes, and I can just keep slipping in. And
because you know that doe's watching you.
Oh, yeah, right? Yeah. It's easy. It's just easier keeping tabs on them when they're all up feeding than when they're all tucked away in their beds. You don't know where all the eyes are exactly, how they're facing, or what the wind's doing. So I'll take a deer on his feet, I'd say almost any time, definitely, and try and put an arrow in him.
No, that's awesome, man. You painted a perfect picture for us. So like I told you, I don't know if we were recorded when we said it or not, but Ben and I are headed out west for the first time this year, headed to Wyoming, obviously, just to chase speed goats. Ultimately, it's going to be kind of self-serving, but I'm going to appeal to all my Midwestern fellows out there. So for someone coming in, hunting, the sagebrush and hunting the flats, what kind of advice would you give someone to do a spot and stalk on a pronghorn? Obviously water's key, but in terms of like stalking and kind of the spotting tactics, what would kind of be your maybe like top 3 things to give for advice for that?
All right, so top 3 things on an antelope hunt or pronghorn hunt. First of all, while you're sitting at home right now, I know you're already doing this, get your mapping figured out. Get your roads really figured out, because the biggest thing with antelope is you're going to want to cover tons of country, because you're going to blow. The cool thing about antelope is, like, first of all, you can hunt them all day. They don't go bed anywhere. Like, they bed down, but it's out in the wide open, so it's always game on. So you got September, you got 14 hours to hunt them. So you got all the time in the world to hunt. So really right now, get your maps figured out so you know this plan B, plan C, D, E, F, all the way to Z with antelope. So there's maybe where you kind of find your water. And, dude, they'll walk 2 or 3 miles to get to water too. So water's key. Find it, then hunt all the way around it, all the way out to 5-8 miles. By then, you'll be finding other water sources. So depending on what our summer brings to us. But as far as real tactics with antelope, when you get out in that country and you see an antelope and you think, man, how am I going to stalk out there? Give yourself the chance. Like, get out there, because that sagebrush, it'll show you more folds and more cuts and more rolls. You're going to have to crawl on your stomach. You might have to crab crawl on your back. Like, it's going to be tough stalking. You're going to be laying out there for an hour here, an hour there, sweating, mad cactus, and thinking it's never going to come together. But keep giving yourself those opportunities. Even if it doesn't look like it's that high percentage of a stalk, try it, because that country lends itself to a lot more topography than you really think it does. So get after it and get on those stalks. Be proficient out to 50 yards. I don't think you have to shoot any further than 50 yards. There's guys who are going to tell you need to sling 60, 80, 100, whatever. Be proficient to 50 yards. You can get within 50 yards. And since this is your first time coming out, don't set your standards that you need to kill some, 16-inch goat. Like, just to do a mature buck will be a blast. I mean, you see something that's at 12 to 14 inches, you're going to see a lot of that. 12 to 14 inches in Wyoming is kind of the regular, right? And just put stalks on. You're going to love it, and you're going to eat it up when you finally get an arrow to hit one of them. And
I'm so excited. I can't wait. I mean, and I'm glad you said that too, because and Ben and I, we're not trophy hunters by any means. I mean, and I just want something that's a good representation of the area that I'm at. You know what I'm saying? And that's all I really care about. I mean, when you're doing spot and stock and you're doing archery, like, dude, it could be a doe. It doesn't even matter. Like,
yes.
It's such a hard thing to do, and it not demands respect, but it's like the respect is there regardless. You know what I'm saying? Just as you're not shooting something like 400 yards away, you're cutting in close.
If we can seal the deal on a stock, I'd feel accomplished. Doesn't matter how big it is.
Dude. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. That's the attitude you got to have.
Especially trying to film it or something,
Yeah. If you guys are gonna film it, like, I've done a couple solo film, and it's tough. It's a tough one. But the thing is, if they see you, they don't like give you the 1, 2, 3, then run. Like, man, you get drawn back, and if they see you, they're gone. It's like, now, like, you always feel pressured to get the shot off. So if you can get that set up to where you're drawn back, and your top cam and limb and riser starting to show as you show yourself. Like, you need to know that. That's why I say 50 yards, because if you can get settled, get that 40 pin buried on him and let it rip. And I don't know, I'm a trigger index finger release guy, so it's one of those ones where I need to pull through and do all the pretty Dudley stuff, whatever they talk about, whatever. But antelope, totally. I've definitely hit that trigger on some antelope just to get that shot off, because they're gonna wheel and run. The other thing too is you get a little, not that they're immature, but you get those younger bucks, those 2 and 3 year olds. You might spook them. Say you get to 60, 80 yards, they might spook, and then they'll kind of run like a half circle and just kind of duck down and get ready, be clipped on, maybe be looking through your rangefinder right over the top of your sights. I mean, just be set up, ready to rock. And they'll do a half circle, and they'll come back in. They're a very curious animal, so they'll walk. It'll be a straight on shot, but they'll turn and they'll walk back at you, and they'll stop. I mean, it doesn't. I'm going to say that works 1 out of 20 times, 1 out of 15 times that they're going to walk back and be within 50, 60 yards. But it's not all done when you blow them out. Like, they might run, if they didn't see you, or they didn't know what they saw, they might do a run, a half circle loop. And it's not like they'll necessarily run downwind. They just run a half circle loop, and then pretty soon they're walking back at you, looking at you. So my advice is just put every stock on you can, and don't get discouraged. Don't get discouraged. Put every stock on you can. It'll come together. It only takes 5 minutes. It's got to be the right 5 minutes in bow hunt.
So what's your do you follow the Hushing guys?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I don't follow. I mean, yes, they're on Instagram. Yeah.
Have you? What's your thought on the Montana decoy stuff? Ben and I joked about this all the time, but there's one that's attaches to the stab of your bow.
Okay, that's a heads-up decoy, isn't it?
Yeah, you shoot right through. And by the way, we need to talk about you. I never talked about it yet, but we need to talk about your goat hat. I saw that in your video. Dude. I saw that in your video. That cracked me up.
So that works good. That gives you the 1,000, 2, 1,000, and they're looking at you. They see that hat, and that stops them. I've used that, and that's killed antelope for me right there.
I don't think Ben has seen it, but it's it's kind of like a...
The guy's name is, I don't know the guy's name, but it's out of Montana. It's
like a mascot
decoy.
Head. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, it's silly. You look like an idiot, but they work, man. And I'm sure the heads up decoy would work great. When are you guys coming? What dates are you coming?
Right now I'm thinking, I think what season opens in the middle of August. So
Yeah,
depending,
August
I mean,
15th.
obviously with the kids and stuff, it really depends on kind of what my life is looking like right then. But I'm trying to think of, right there towards open of season, or maybe just even a couple weeks after, depending on what our schedule looks like. But
What do you guys do in September? Like, what is your September? Because I'll tell you what, you asked about decoys. Antelope has to be one of the funnest animals I've ever. When I've filled out my elk, that one you've seen where I've got that decoy head. Actually, I
yeah,
don't know if it's that hunt. I got a hunt. I got a couple I've killed. You show. I've had them where I've had that hat on after about the 15th of September,
yeah,
and they'll run over me. Like I missed one because he cut the distance from 55 yards to 30 yards so fast. I held 40 and shot it over top of his back. I mean, they'll run you over. That
yeah.
time of year when you hunt an antelope in the rut, it's like they are super aggressive. You just got to get within probably 80 to 100, get in within 100 yards of them, and then put up that decoy you were talking about that goes and stab your bow. Oh, they're coming at you. You're getting a shot, no question.
That's
No
awesome.
question.
Well, that's great. That's great advice too, because what the first rifle season is what in October.
Yeah, October
December.
1st usually.
Yeah. So So, and we actually have some events here in August too. So that actually might work out even better. Well,
If
yeah,
you guys, if you
we'll
guys
keep
thought that you
talking
were
about
good,
it. Yeah, for sure. I'll keep
yeah,
picking your
do
brain
that.
about it afterwards too. But
Yeah, for sure.
especially where we
Yeah.
are, like and I don't know. We kind of like we hit this stat before we started recording too. But let's talk about the stat. So Ben and I are hunting.
Yes.
I won't say like what unit because I don't necessarily know yet. The draw hasn't come
Well,
out yet.
I'll
But
just say, for ease of this, Casper, Wyoming's in the center of Wyoming. It's pretty much dead center of Wyoming, this town of Casper, Wyoming. And I know I told you like 75%. Someone's going to call me out because everybody's a cowboy keyboard guy, but it's like 75% of pronghorn antelope live within a 150-mile diameter of Casper, Wyoming, or 150-mile radius of Casper, Wyoming. If you were to draw a 150-mile circle around Wyoming, like 75% of all pronghorn live there. Yeah, they stretch from Mexico to Alberta, but that's what our population of Wyoming or what the pronghorn are. So yeah, it's a crazy stat. I mean, there's guys they'll agree with you. And you guys that's ever drove from the East Coast to the West Coast that's drove through Wyoming on I-80 has seen pronghorn the whole way. So
I love it, man.
but
Like I said,
yeah,
I'm stoked. I can't wait to get out there. I mean, it's just, I feel like in terms of like entry level stuff. I mean, obviously I have points for mule deer and stuff, but for like an entry level learning how to stalk, I really think it's nothing better, especially with their eyesight. Like, I mean, I feel like if you can get successful with that, man, you're really in the game for a lot of the other bigger animals as well.
yeah, dude. Like when a guy tells me they killed a white-tailed doe spot and stock with a bow, or a
Dude.
pronghorn antelope spot
Yep.
stock with the bow, I'm like, that's harder than killing any other thing. If you can kill white-tailed does on the ground, and if you can kill a pronghorn antelope on the ground with a bow, you're doing something for sure.
That's awesome. One thing I admire a lot, and this is something that I'm not necessarily used to, but your reverence for like the game. So I think I saw in a story or a post about the legs and the crook of a tree. Can you kind of talk about like your post shot success? Like you had a successful harvest, kind of that post process, if you will.
Yeah, that's something that it's the forelegs of the animal. You stick them in the crook of a tree, and I learned it from a guy that I actually went on that sheep hunt with, and he had learned it from an outfitter that had taught him that. It was just a true mountain man. I mean, both those guys I look up to. And anyways, he said you take the forelegs of an animal, you stick it in the crook of a tree, and it releases the spirit of that animal. And he always says like, cheers to the hunting gods and thank you for the hunt. I'm not a like super religious guy. Nothing against it to anybody. I'm in the mountains on Sundays, and that's my time. And I feel like there's a higher power watching over me. I definitely am spiritual. Like there's something there, and I truly feel that when I'm in the hills. I see things that you guys have seen, things that no other person has seen sitting in your woods. You know what I mean? You know what I mean when you're out there. And I've seen things that people could only have dream of seeing, and I've seen shooting stars do the coolest things. I've seen windstorms knock over just the amazing power of windstorms. I've seen snowstorms in August, and I've seen animals do stuff I've seen eagles chase mule deer. I've seen an eagle pick up an antelope. Like there's these things that just happen in nature, and for me to be able to sit there and see it, I owe so much to these animals that let me chase them. And so, yeah, that's the thing that I do, whether I'm by myself or whether it's one of my friends that harvests an animal right there. We take the forelegs off and we stick it in it, whether it's pronghorn, we're sticking them in a sagebrush or willows up in moose country. I mean, I released the spirit of the animal, and yeah, it maybe sound a little hokey dokey or whatever, but for me, it's a big part of it. I owe a lot to these animals that I love to chase. I don't just kill them to kill them. They feed my family. I display their antlers, but I love everything about them. I'm there 365 days a year, man. I'm outside doing something, looking at animals. So I love them. So yeah,
no, man,
that's
for
it.
sure, and that's right up our alley. And I think Ben and I said it too, but like, and you're right. You're 100% right in that. And like these animals that we chase give us so much more than just meat, and they give us so much more than a trophy. The time, even if it's unsuccessful, the time that you're able to get out, especially like you, man, when you're out in the backcountry, like you're completely disconnected. But even for us here in Ohio, like the time that I can be in my saddle in a tree, I'm not looking at CNN. I'm not worried about COVID. I'm not worried about all these things right there. I'm just right now focused in a moment that people have done for hundreds and thousands of years prior to me. You know what I mean? So like, it's super
totally.
connection. And, and I look at it from a religious perspective too, but like,
for sure.
It's just so much more than that to us, for sure.
When we get the chance to harvest something that deserve our respect, and that's what we're all about.
Oh, 100%.
I think of it too. You kill something, and you think about I think about it when it was a fawn, or when it was an elk calf. I think about where this bull was born. Say I killed a really old bull this year. I didn't get him aged, but one of the oldest bulls ever. He only had one ivory. I mean, he had teeth busted out. It was a crazy old bull, and it's like 10 years ago. Where was this elk calf born? And then I always think about the winters that they lived through. Out here we get some nasty winters. You guys get nasty winters there too. I'm not telling you.
Not even close. Not even close to you, buddy. Not even close.
Yeah, but I think about the winters, and I try to rewind and be like, all right, so this ram was, my sheep, he was born in such and such a year, and what was it like that year, and then how many droughts did they live through? And I really do sit back and think about all that stuff, and you're just because. Right now, I'm sitting in a heated house, and it's warm in Wyoming right now. But last week, we were hitting temperatures, it was 30 below zero, and there was a lot of snow, and it was cold. And it's like those son of a bitches, they're still out there. Those elk are still out there. Those deer are still laying out there in that sagebrush. And here I am in my nice heated house. And so yeah, we owe it to them, and it's crazy. But it's what we love. So I guess it isn't that crazy to me. I want them to live and prosper so that I can chase and show my daughter and feed my family everything that I've loved. So that herd needs to keep growing, and I'll do everything for conservation as far as that goes to help out what I love to do. So yeah, I mean it's a huge part of it for me. Way more than just flinging that arrow down and hitting something. There's a lot more to it for me than that. So
you mentioned and you've been setting it up. You've been setting up and let me hit T-balls today. You're making it real easy. But you mentioned being in a warm house, right? And then, those bears are out there, the elk are out there, and they're living life and they're not quitting. And I want to kind of segue you into your mantra of P&Q, man. Predators never quit. Let's go jump right into that, because it's something that ever since I've heard it, I'm almost ready to write it on my bathroom mirror, because I feel like it's something I can especially live by, and I know that awesome. And I know that you certainly do, man. So let's go ahead and talk about predators never quit.
All right, well, thanks. That's cool that you say that. It means a lot to me. It means everything to me. It's actually the motto I came up with 2013. It was a general over-the-counter hunt. I'd actually killed a bull earlier that year, and I was videoing for two of my buddies. And it was one of those hunts where you plan on just day hunting. We didn't have camp on our backs. We were just going to roll day hunting. Anyways, we got about 4 miles in. It was middle of the morning and late September, and we glassed some elk that were probably 4 or 5 miles the opposite direction than camp. And we knew it was going to take us, and it was going to be an all-night deal. We're probably going to spend out, but we're sitting there, and I looked at the guys. I was like, predators never quit, guys. I was like, let's go get them. I said it just like that, meaning a wolf needs to eat, right? A predator never quits. You have to feed. You have to eat. And we're hiking off this ridge. We took off after him. And I was like, I'm going to put that on a shirt. I like that. And for me, it resonated because my whole life's been like that. I wasn't the biggest, baddest guy at football, but I tried really hard. I loved football. I loved wrestling. I wasn't the biggest, baddest dude in the state, but I really loved it. I tried hard, and there was nobody who was going to practice harder than me. I really believed that. And I mean, it was as far as work. I wanted to be everything at work is a competition. Never quit, never quit, never quit. I build fence for a living on the ranch, it was always a competition. The young college guys I had working underneath me at the times, everything was a competition. And that's just life, man. Everybody's always trying to beat you. And so I've always just not really rolled, I shouldn't say a chip on my shoulder, but it's just this never quit attitude. And so long story short, we hunted that year, that hunt, ended up spending the night out. We didn't have enough food, ended up spending another night out. We ended up hiking off the mountain range and getting people to give us a ride all the way back up, and then having to go back in to get our rigs. Like, it was a wild adventure. And I drew up a logo, just a PNQ with an arrow through it, and ended up putting on some hats, and it hit. Like, that was in 2013, and I sold a pile of hats and quite a few T-shirts. And then it kind of fell off, and my priorities weren't all straight with that, and there was a lot of work trying to guide full-time working and trying to get all these hats shipped out. So I pumped the brakes. I backed off it for a little while. I kept the trademark, did all that stuff. And then my wife, we ended up getting married, and my wife's like, hey, why don't we get that going again? Like, I would always have people ask about it. And so I fired it up a year ago right now, actually.
Oh, awesome.
And had a bunch of hats made and had a website, got my website up, and it's not even about that, but I sell some hats, I sell some shirts, and it's just Predators Never Quit. And it's really cool. I've had a lot of guys reach out to me and be like, man, I really like the motto, and they've told me their stories. Gals have told me their stories. It's been pretty neat how people, send me a message on Instagram or something on a cold morning, they're running, they're just tag Predators Never Quit. And I guess it's kind of neat because it resonates with a lot of people, and it's not just hunting; it's life.
Yep.
And you gotta be a predator that never quits with your wife. You better be a good husband. Like, there's no breaks when you're being a dad and a husband. There's no time off, right?
Oh, for sure.
I mean, when the lights go out, and there's always something you can do. You can be helping your wife with dishes. You can be doing laundry. Like, there's always this never quit mode with me, and I try to live it. It's not literally just the motto, it's a lifestyle for me.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. And that's funny because when I heard you say that to Bo, obviously it resonated with me as a father, but then I saw you, and of course, I only know you from Instagram. Like, we haven't, connected or anything, but and you can tell people that are fake, you can tell people that there's just, a front or whatever, but then we see you in the story every day, hey, 15 days this season. Hey, 14 days this season. 13 days this season. Like, I'm in the gym getting it every day to making sure that I'm 100% when it comes time. And that's when I was like, okay, this dude's for real, And I can't let you get out here. You had a quote that I really took down. I actually wrote it down on Post-it note today, but it was like the consistency quote.
Yeah.
You go ahead. I'll let you hit that. It would be stronger coming from you.
Yeah, consistency creates dedication, and dedication creates consistency. That's something my wife, she always giggle at me when I say it. Like, no matter what, anytime you don't want to go to the gym, I think Jocko, for me, the thing that really hit it off, Jocko one time, it was something like, when you don't feel like going through the motions, go through the damn motions. Like, just do it. Like, whatever it is. You don't always feel like going to the gym. You don't always, right back to, it's hard being a dad and a husband and being 100% all the time, but you got to do it. So do it. And with me, it's just consistency. If you can just, first of all, everybody's like, oh, I'm dedicating myself to doing this. Well, first of all, you got to start with a game plan. Like, to be dedicated at something, it's got to start somewhere. So the easiest thing to do is just be consistent. Like, start one day. It might not be all 5 years. I work out 7 days a week. I'm doing something 7 days a week. Like, it's just me. And so, maybe it's only 5 days a week, but be consistent to that. Now, 5 days a week, I'm going to do this. Well, pretty soon you start seeing results, and that creates dedication. Like, once you start seeing results, whatever you're doing, whatever you're studying papers for school and you study 3 nights a week, well, pretty soon you start getting better grades. Like, the simplest things, work. I don't care what it is. Working out for me is the big thing. Shooting your bow is the big thing. Like, shoot 1 arrow a day. You don't need to shoot 50 arrows a day. Shoot 1 arrow a day. Pretty soon you start cleaning up, and you start seeing that you're getting better, and it creates this dedication to, now you're dedicated. You've put the time in, so it's created dedication. Now that dedication just wheels right back off to being consistent. And that's a saying that it's going on one of my shirts. I haven't even told anybody that yet, but I got a buddy of mine that's just going to be that quote right on the front of a P&Q shirt with a very simple P&Q symbol right underneath it. And it's something that I've looked it up because I feel like it's one of those things, like, you make a quote and you're like, someone has to have said that, right?
Sure,
it's funny you ask me. Like, no one has ever asked me about that when I say that, and I say it all the time. I say it to, there's a couple of guys at the gym, they're younger guys that they're good dudes, and they're always asking me questions, and it's all I ever tell them is just consistency creates dedication. Dedication creates consistency. Like it's a circle, man. And that's it's what I live. It's what I think about. It's how I think about things, and it works for me. And some people it resonates with, I guess.
Oh, dude, 100%. I think it resonates just about anybody, and that's the beauty about the Predators Never Quit, and that quote is just like you said, man. You don't have to be some backcountry hunter. You know what I mean? You can just be a person, like just be a dad or be a student or be whatever, and like anyone can apply that to their life. And so it hits the nail on the head. And I'd like to get a couple sent to Ohio here for sure, because I know Ben and I would definitely rock this for sure.
I will, man. Yeah, we'll get in touch for sure.
So, brother, like with all this said, man, I want to give you a chance. Obviously, we're talking Predators Never Quit. I want to give you a chance to kind of push your platforms. You know, where can people find you? Anyone listening to this, the Instagrams, the Facebooks, whatever have you. Like, go ahead and shout out your, everything.
Biggest thing I'm on is Instagram. It's S Davis 2506. S Davis 2506. And that's one. Predators Never Quit is my YouTube channel, and then predatorsneverquit.com is where I sell my merchandise. But Facebook, it's just Sam Davis. I don't do a lot on Facebook. Whatever you can hit the button and everything that goes from Instagram go to Facebook. That's what I do. I'm not a big Facebooker, but thanks for that. Yeah, I like Instagram. For me is one of those things. It's like I had a really good buddy. He's like, dude, you need to start putting up, because I was as a kid, my dad was a guide, so he always made me take really clean pictures, no tongue, no blood, like let's make it look good, respect this animal. And so I always had tons of pictures, and from a kid I packed a camera with me everywhere, so I had external hard drives I have just full of pictures. And so it was about, I guess it's 5-6 years ago now, Peyton, my wife, we were in Seattle sitting in the airport. She's like, I'm going to make you an Instagram. Because I was like, no, I don't want Instagram, And she goes, I'm going to make you an Instagram. And so I did, and started putting pictures up there. And then as I started doing it more, and people would comment, and they would actually like they would comment saying they liked it, not just the like button. They'd be like, this is a cool picture, or something like that. I was like, man, I got a lot of cool stuff I could share about my life. I've done some neat things, and people really like seeing it. So that's what Instagram started for me. And it's kind of neat, because Instagram is neat in that aspect. I love seeing the hunts people go on. I love seeing people's families. Like it's a pretty cool thing to like see into people's, like, you guys know a ton of stuff about me, and it's crazy because it's all through some pictures. The questions you've asked me. Yeah, but I don't try to be fake. I try to be me. Like with those pictures I put, my stories I put up, that's me. That's everyday life. I mean, so yeah, honestly, man, like I've said it 1,000 times, but like to me, that was the part for me that was just like, yeah, we're talking to this guy, because there are so many people out there that have that grip and grin, and they probably couldn't tell you half the stuff that you told us today. You know what I mean? And so you can just tell, like, it's super transparent that you are who you are. And so that's why, for sure. I mean, it's so wild. I mean, because here we are, two guys in Central Ohio, Columbus, and we're talking to someone in Sheridan, Wyoming, you know what I mean? And it's just all because of this platform. And so that's what's great to me. Like, or talking to another person in Southern California or whatever have you. Like, it gives us this opportunity to talk and learn, and to, have friendships all across the country. Well, I appreciate you guys for having me on and seeing it like that. And like I said, thank you for the kind words. But yeah, it's a passion, and we're just lucky to live this life, man. So we might as well live it up.
Amen, brother. All right, man. Well, I know, like I said, dad life calls. I know I need to get home to mine, but I appreciate you taking the time today. Go ahead and get back up there with your family, and we look forward to talking to you again, man. Hopefully we can link up when we're out there. Thanks, Sam.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks a lot for having me on, and we'll do it again sometime.
All right, brother. Take care. Have a good night.
All right.
All right, everyone. That's all we have for you today. We hope you enjoyed that conversation with Sam. I know Ben and I could have went on for at least another couple more hours. As always, we appreciate you listening. Please give us a rating and be sure to share us with a friend. It helps us grow the show and continue to provide you with the best guests we possibly can. And until next time, enjoy the pursuit.